All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our session this afternoon on doing a 360 images in Storyline 360. It's great to see you all. Thank you for joining us. In the next 30 minutes to probably about 45 minutes or so, I just want to kind of share with you the 360 image feature within Storyline 360, and also hopefully give you some ideas and examples where you could create your own onboarding module for when you've got new starters kicking off in the business, so they get a bit of a feel for the organization before they get underway. So welcome again. As I said, probably about 30 to 45 minutes. Just very briefly, my name is Matt Blackstock. I'm the learning manager here at Be Online Learning. There's a lot of familiar names that have popped up in the chat, so it is great to see you all again, guys. Well, virtually at least. And hopefully you're not freezing too much in this weather, this lovely Arctic cold snap we're having at the moment. I guess we're all kind of searching for the sun where we can possibly find it. So Be Online Learning, for those that are familiar with us, we kind of have been around in Australia and North America since about 2006. We have kind of three main areas of our business. We do a lot of professional development, so free webinars like this, and also a number of professional development training courses like our Master e-learning course. We're also the Articulate Certified Training Partner for Australia and New Zealand. So if you're after any assistance or help with learning the Articulate 360 training program, we can certainly help you out. Besides that, we also build within the Articulate suite ourselves, both custom content and also off-the-shelf content, and also our crowning joy or jewel as well as our learning platform called Birch, which can manage all of your learning for you, whether it be face-to-face learning, on-the-job assessment, online learning, or even webinar-based learning like this today. So if you've got any questions about any of that stuff, more than happy to hang around after the session to answer them, and can point you in the right direction. Now, before we get underway, it is a webinar, so we won't be activating your microphones, so you don't need to worry about those, or even your cameras. So, if you're still working from home and you haven't got dressed yet, that's perfectly fine. I'm going to turn my camera off momentarily as well, just when we get in the demonstration. But there are a couple of ways you can interact in the actual room today. I would invite you to use either the chat panel or the Q&A panel to ask any questions or to share any ideas or just to make any comments about the training as you go through. I see a few people have found it already, so they're saying hi and g'day in the chat. So also feel free to talk to those other people in the chat as well. And again, if there are any questions that you've got during the actual presentation, again, throw them in the chat, throw them in the Q&A, and I'll answer them as part of the actual session. And if I don't get to them during the session, I'll certainly answer them after the session. All right, so without any further ado, let's get into it. Let's look at 360-degree images. So about 18 months ago, Storyline 360 started talking about this idea of 360-degree images. And about 12 months ago, they finally launched the beta version of it to the actual Storyline 360 software program. So some of you may have already seen it. Some of you might have even played with it, which is great, but it's not something that you might use all the time. But having said that, it is a great tool to have within your actual toolbox. Now, if you want to start playing with 360-degree images, where do you get them from? Well, you can get them from places like Shutterstock or iStock Photo, or even through the content library that comes as part of Storyline 360. So they kind of look a bit like this. This is just some I've taken from Shutterstock to give you an idea. They look a bit weird. They kind of look a little bit stretched, maybe a bit bubbly as well. But what that is the actual image taking up the full 360 kind of, if you think about a sphere, and if you were standing inside that sphere and this picture was painted all over the inside of the sphere, that's how the 360-degree image works. So when you kind of see them in a 2D world, they look a little bit like this guy here. Okay, so if you see a photo like that for a 360 image, there's nothing wrong with it. That's in fact what we actually need. And a couple of things you can do, you can actually get 360 images like this, as I said, through Shutterstock. The one thing you want to be aware of is you want to make sure that the resolution is 2:1, which means it's usually twice as wide as it is high. And that'll give you the best kind of experience when you start using Storyline 360, start using these images within Storyline 360 itself. Now, if you don't want to use Shutterstock images, that's perfectly fine. You can actually invest in a camera. So you can get 360 cameras for around about $650 to $800. That's kind of your entry level. And of course, you can go up and spend thousands of dollars as well. The good news is you don't need to. A lot of the entry-level cameras like GoPros or the Ones, they can actually take really good 360 images. So if you wanted to take some 360 images around your workplace or even out in the field, they are a really good investment to get into. They are still an investment, so you would have to look at that in regards to the business case for your organization, but they're not out of reach, and that's the really good news about these cameras. Now, besides getting actual cameras or pre-purchasing 360-degree images, there are also a number of apps that are available for your smartphones as well. Now, I'll be honest with you, I haven't found one yet that I like. They're not great. They kind of get almost there, but they're not perfect. Now, anyone who is an iPhone user, you do have the panorama shot built into your iPhone, which will kind of work, but it's actually not a true 360-degree image. It's only a 270-degree image. So you could take a panorama photo with your iPhone, import it into Storyline as a 360 image, and it would work. But where the pictures actually join back together, it would be really, really obvious, and it just wouldn't be quite right. So always a good idea to try and either take a photo yourself or track down a really good Shutterstock image. Now, beyond that, what does it look like? You know, if I'm actually having a look at a 360 image, what does it look like when I'm actually playing with it? And here is an example of what a 360 image looks like once you've got it into the actual system itself. You can see that you're kind of looking at one area, and if you actually click and hold your left mouse button, you can rotate within that particular area. Okay, so I can move left, right, I can look down, I can also look up. So it kind of gives you a pseudo virtual reality experience without actually the expense of virtual reality glasses. So that's the good news as well. It's not an expensive thing to start playing with this. And the other great thing is once you've got the photo in there, you can use things like markers or even hotspots to then give the learner some information they can explore and discover as they go through as well. So with this one here, if I look out the window, I can click on the window and that opens up an image for me. Now, this will look very familiar if you've used markers within Storyline 360 itself. It kind of uses a very similar process to create the interaction component for the actual 360 image. So you could click on a hotspot like this and it pops up a little label. Within that label, you can actually zoom in on the picture a bit more. So if you wanted to have a situation where you wanted someone to look around an environment, click on an item to bring up a little label, and then you could also have an additional image to zoom in a bit closer so the learner can have a look at whatever it is they're looking at as well. Now, besides the light boxes, the hotspots, you've also got your markers. Now, these are very traditional markers. In this particular instance, what I've got the marker doing is actually opening a layer. All right, so it's just a stock standard layer, which is bringing up a quiz question. So according to work surveys, what's the most annoying thing a colleague does? Let's go with watch cat videos all day. Whoop, no, it's actually if they don't wash their coffee cup. I don't know whether anyone can relate to that, but I've seen some pretty feral coffee cups in my life when I've worked in the office. But that's an interesting piece of trivia. And as you explore the image, you can find multiple markers as well. And as you hover over them, there might be a little pop-up which tells you to click me, or even just clicking on it will take you into another particular layer with an additional question. Let's go with fun on this one. Oh, that works. Cool. Now, as far as working with layers and states and all the building blocks of Storyline, they all work the same way as what you would do within a stock standard Storyline module. There's nothing different about them. Okay, you can add your layers, you can add your states, you can do whatever you want with it as well. So with this particular example, all I've got is just a couple of trivia questions about working in an office. Let's say they take about 20 minutes looking for stuff. Well, actually almost an hour. Let's not tell our bosses about that one, eh? And then as we scan around, we can also have other opportunities with these markers. Is not only can we add text or layers, you can also add videos as well. So you could add a video and then maybe you could have a supervisor or a manager talking a bit more about what the learner's looking at, or you could have a video just play to give them further information about whatever they clicked on as well. And then last but not least, of course, you can also add some audio. Oh, it's a very important presentation. Let's listen to this one. This is a very important presentation. Please continue to watch the screen. Thank you. The presentation is now over. Right. Well, bit of a letdown, but I guess the good thing about that is if you do want to add audio instead of video or pictures, you're able to do that as well. Not only recording it directly within the storyline itself, like you would do normally when you're adding audio, but you can also import MP3 files or even record it kind of live on the go as well. So that's the nice thing about the 360 images. They give you that opportunity to let the learner actually jump into an environment and then explore that environment without needing any expensive like virtual reality equipment or even anything out of the ordinary as well. And then when you finish with whatever you're looking at, all right, we've got another little hover state that pops up, and then that'll take us out of the actual unit as well. So you can get quite some nice effects when you're playing with the Storyline 360 image. But let's have a look at how it actually works within the tool itself. First up, the thing you need to realize is when you start working with 360 images, it actually has its own section within the insert ribbon for you to work with. And why that is if you just insert a 360 image you've taken or you've taken from a Shutterstock image, if you just insert it like a stock standard picture, it's going to have that warped effect to it. And you're not actually going to be able to work with it like a 360 image. So whenever you add a picture, you do need to insert it via the 360 image icon. And then once you do that, it drops the image onto your screen and you'll see there's a nice big button in the middle that says edit the 360 image. Now, if anyone's used Articulate's older e-learning authoring tool called Studio, and part of that was a program called Engage, this will be very familiar to you. In the original days, what would happen was if you needed to create an interaction within the Studio application, you would have to actually open a separate application to create that interaction, then it would import it in the actual unit. Now, we don't have to go through that two-step process too much here, but it is very similar that you've got to kind of do half of your editing in your normal slide view, and then the balance of your editing actually occurs within the 360 image edit as well. So if you have a quick look what I've got here, I do have my layers. All right, so I've already set up my layers with my little trivia questions, and I've set up all the triggers and bits and pieces for those. So they're there ready to go. All right, so that's one of the things with 360 images. If you do want to start using things like layers, then you've got to kind of create those in the normal slide view. Once you kind of got your layers connected, you can then link to them via triggers within the 360 image, but you still need to create them first. All right, so once you've got your layers sorted, next we actually click on this button in the middle, and that'll take us into the Edit 360 mode. All right, now it is very similar to what you would normally see. We've still got our trigger panel over here. You can see the layer panel is now not there, and that's because, as I said, we need to edit that back out in normal slide mode. When we're in 360 image mode, the key thing we're doing here is we're just editing the image. Now in the preview mode, you can still drag around. You can still look up and down. All right, so this is all live, but it does allow you to decide how you want to add your bits and pieces to let the learner interact with the actual image. So the editing is pretty straightforward. You've got three tabs. You've got marker, label, and interaction. So these are markers, okay? And if you go to your marker tab, you'll notice that they kind of work the same way as what normal markers work within Storyline 360. I click on it to say I want to add a marker. I click on the item I want to add that marker to. It drops it into play, and by default, it'll enable the label as well. So this is probably pretty familiar, you know. This is my heading, and this is my text. So that is very similar to how the markings work, okay? So that's probably pretty straightforward. You can adjust those items the same way as you adjust them within Storyline itself. So if I want to change any colors, if I want to change the color of the button, I can do that via the accent option. And if I want to change the icon, I can also, by clicking on the marker, choose a different icon as well. And there's probably around about 24-ish stock standard icons that are available. But the great thing about this is if you want to use any of the Content Library 360 icons, you can draw from all those as well. So with my plant image over here, what I did was I didn't use one of the built-in icons. I actually grabbed an icon from the actual Content Library 360. So you're never going to be out as far as variety goes when it comes to your actual icons as well. All right. So if I return back to that one I've just created, okay, you can also decide you don't need to have the label. So you would have noticed with my green markers here, I actually don't have a label on those guys. I've just added a trigger to show the relevant layer. Okay, so if you want to turn the label off, that's not a big deal. You can do that from up in the marker tab. You can just unselect it and it will turn the label off. So you've got that option whether you want to turn that on or whether you just want to use the marker kind of like a button or a shape to actually trigger another item like a show layer or a jump to a slide or whatever the case may be. You can also add additional triggers to your markers as well. So that's what our next little trigger icon is here. And when you click on it, you'll notice it gives you a list of triggers just like you would have outside in your normal slide view. It is a slightly reduced number of actions, but most of these are what you need. Things like show layer, lightbox slide, open a URL, adjust a variable if you need to. So some of the more common used triggers, you can actually hook those up to the markers themselves. It doesn't give you the full kind of like wealth of triggers that you have out in normal slide view, but probably most of the ones you'll actually use. And you can still do things like executing JavaScript or using XAPI statements if you want to go one step further with those items as well. So I could say, yep, show layer, and then I could connect that to one of the layers I've already pre-built outside on the session itself. So that's what our triggers are all about. You've also got these hint options. So with the hint option, they are generally only used if you hide the label, okay? If you kind of get rid of the label. And also, not so much with markers, but also with hotspots, which is the second type of label I'm going to show you in just a moment. But I'll keep kind of moving through this to get to the end. The last one is you can actually switch from a marker to a hotspot just by going the switch type button. Okay, so the markers are like a self-contained dot that you can move around the screen wherever you want. Whereas the hotspots, which we'll have a look at in a moment, you can actually resize these guys to cover a particular space or shape or whatever the case may be. And the nice thing about that is that if I kind of resize that to suit the chair, you'll see that Storyline kind of maintains that shape as I move throughout the project as well. So I don't need to adjust it for every possible interaction that might have to come up. So that's the good thing about those markers as well. While I'm on markers, if you choose a marker, if you choose a hotspot instead of a marker, you got the same kind of things. You can still add labels. You can still add triggers to them. So what I've got over here with my window is I've just got a label coming up. And with those labels, you can, just like normal labels within Storyline, you can add pictures, videos, and audio as well. So you've got a full kind of wealth of extra media or multimedia you can introduce to actually help the learner with the exploration of this interaction. So while I'm on the label tab, you've also got, they've just introduced recently, and this was the last couple of updates, they've also introduced buttons. So what you could do is you could actually, if you wanted to, within the label itself, I'm going to change that back to a marker, I could add a button, okay? So I could use that button to, again, open another layer, link to another slide, send an email, open up a document, or whatever the case may be, okay? Christina, great question. You can, with the hotspots, they do tend to default to a rectangular or square shape. So you can't actually make them particularly straight round. Okay, you can kind of move them to a roundish shape as you want, but they do tend to work with boxes more so. So they don't actually go round or oval. Okay. Yeah, that's okay. No worries at all. So yeah, it's always kind of a square, and then you can adjust your key points at the end. Okay. All right, we'll come back to our label. See, with the label, you can add, as I said, buttons, and with those buttons, you can also color those, change the text on them, and actually set them up to link to whatever you want to do. Again, if you want to jump to another slide or lightbox something, all the same kind of triggers that you would normally use are available to you, right? With the buttons, actually, yeah, so with the buttons, you've still got the cut down amount of triggers that are available, but still most of the ones you probably need. Okay. You've also got a couple of other options here, depending on whether you have audio or video within a particular label. So with this one here, because I've got some audio in it, it'll actually enable me to adjust the volume, to play the audio to preview it, or even edit the audio in more detail. However, if I'd selected my plant marker here, because that's got a video, all right, it gives me slightly different options. All right, I can still preview the video to see what it looks like. I can adjust the volume. I can also edit the video. So just like you actually go into a normal video within Storyline itself and you can edit it and crop it and trim it, you can also do that within these actual labels within the Storyline 360 as well. Okay. Jeanette, that's a great question. That's really a question for Articulate. So I know they are looking at that kind of stuff, but I think they were just kind of getting the images kind of sorted first. So making sure that images work beforehand, and then probably move into video at a later date. So as I said, they've had this kind of 360 images in development for probably a couple of years, all right, 2.5 years or so. And it's only been available to end users from around about, I think about March last year. And then it was in beta for a little while. It's only really in the last kind of couple of updates that have actually finally taken the beta line off it. So yeah, certainly no reason why they can't add video to it, but I'm not sure, or I'm not aware of a particular time frame at this point. Yeah, it should be good. Yeah, kind of makes everything more, makes our toolbox even more accessible for the type of things of learning experiences we want to kind of provide to our learners. You've also got options, you know, if I come back to my button. So as mentioned, you can adjust the color of your buttons as well. Make that a nice orange button. And then whatever you want to add, they're fully editable as well. The other option is you can also, if required, if you need to, you can add alt text within your labels as well. So alt text is just so screen readers can understand what to do with that button, or you can also add alt text for images as well. And the last tab here is what we call our interaction tab. And what it does, it allows us to adjust some of the visual look of what we've got as far as our markers or our labels go. So the first thing is the theme you can choose from. You can give the markers either a light or a dark theme based on whatever you require. Now that is kind of universal. So once I kind of throw it into play, you can see that it's adjusting all the bits and pieces. All right, so this is something to be aware of. Okay, you can go back and adjust things individually from there, but this theme kind of gives you either your white labels or your dark labels, depending on your need and your requirements as well. You've also got the option to have either square corners. I'll change that back to white, might be a bit easier to see. Or to rounded corners, again, depending on the type of visual look that you're after. And the last thing is you've got a couple of options in regards to behavior of markers and hotspots. And this really comes down to how you want to set up your interaction, because you've got two ways that you can set up the interaction. You can set it up like I've got this one, which is a free navigation. So what that means is the learner can freely jump between items as they go through. They don't need to do them in a particular order. Or you can actually set up a guided tour. So that means that the learner has to interact with your 360 image in the particular sequence that you want them to. So that might be a requirement for something like compliance training, or it might be a requirement for something where there's actually a set procedure they need to work through. Or if you're kind of doing a 360 image that might show an office space or a factory space, or whatever the case may be, maybe the learner needs to move through that space in a particular order to understand the process they're actually looking at, or the procedure they need to cover off, or the policy or the behaviors or the actions, or whatever that case may be. Okay, so very, very basic couple of things. With your markers, you can get them to kind of pulse or animate if they haven't been clicked on. All right, so that just draws the learner's attention that, there's something they haven't visited yet or something they haven't explored yet. And also with your hotspots, okay, you can hide your hotspots. All right, so rather than having the green kind of opaque square, like you can see on my window over here, I could hide that altogether. All right, so I'll just preview that so you can see what it looks like. Just make sure it is actually hidden. All right, so I can still see it in development mode, but when I jump back out into preview mode, you'll see that you actually can't see it now. All right. So I can't see it. So that's kind of getting back to that idea of asking the learner to explore the venue or explore the environment they're in. If they click on it, it will still activate. It'll show them where it is, but it's not always obvious to start with. All right. Down the bottom here, you can see it's got 1 of 9 visited. You can turn this on or off based on what you need. This just allows the learner to see, have I interacted with everything I should have interacted with? And you'll see that as I move through the actual space and click on items to look at what they are, that number actually increases. I'll go to the next one. All right, it's increased. And then of course my questions as well. So the number keeps going up. There we go. Now I've missed 2. So which ones have I missed? Got that one. Done that one. I've missed the one that exits out. I'm aware of that. If I'd turned the pulse on, I'd know which one I hadn't clicked, wouldn't I? That'll say 8 of 9 visited. You might be right. Let's check that out. No, I clicked on that. That's right. Okay. I've lost myself. The hidden one that I created up here. Remember I created that one to demo? Because it was hidden, wasn't there. But what you can do is something like that, if it is hidden, what you can do is when you select hotspots, I think our pulse hotspots only works if we're showing them. Yeah. So that way, if you do need them to click on stuff or if something's not so obvious, it's always good to actually show where the hotspots are to help them out. Let's delete that before we forget it. Get rid of that one. I'm going to change my theme back to black and white and green. All right, so one more time. There we go. So if you hover over the hotspot, it'll show the color, but you can see there's also that kind of white pulsing square. That also just gives a bit of a visual cue to the learner that there's something to click on over there. All right, so as they work their way around, same with the TV. When I hover over it, it'll show it in a bit more detail. So it gives it away. And away we go. You can see there's our markers down the bottom. So you do have a fair bit of variety on how you want to play with the actual unit itself. If you decide to go with the guided tour, what it does, this is the order it sets it in. So this is the order that I need to set stuff in. So I'm going to leave the progress. I'm going to put the guided tour on. I'll just preview that as well. And what it will tend to do is I think it leads us around the room to tell us what to go to next. All right, now because I've got a trigger on these markers, the layer is automatically opening, which is probably not the best experience for our learner because they're not going, why is that suddenly opening up? But you can see now that I've actually got arrows, next and previous arrows. So by clicking on these guys, all right, moving around. So it's actually hidden all the bits and pieces. Then I click next and it brings up the next one. Okay. So we'll go, yep, go on that one, go next. So this is a good way that you can guide your learner through an actual set place. So they've got to click the actual icons to move through each of the markers or the hotspots, as the case may be. I've got my exit button coming up last. So what I'd probably want to do there is make sure my exit is the last thing they go to, which is the door. So you can just drag that down to the final position. All right. Okay. Once you're happy with what you've got, so I'm just going to delete my marker. Okay. You save and close. So just like when you edit a video or edit an audio file, it'll save and close it. And now all those markers and stuff are in play. Okay. Yeah, when you insert a picture, Catherine, so if I go through the process, I'll just pop over here. So when you insert via the 360 image, okay, set 360 image. And then when I make the selection, so let's I'll grab this one here. It pops it on the slide for you. Okay. Now you won't be able to see the whole picture until you actually click on the Edit 360 image. Okay. And then when you click on that, it'll bring you into the actual edit mode, and that will allow you to move around the actual image to make your changes and add your markers and hotspots and so forth. Okay. Yeah, that's all right. No worries at all. All right. So one of the reasons why I want to do this webinar is that one of the main needs for this type of training that I've kind of come across and stumbled across a few times, I've actually found that people tend to, with onboarding a new staff member, and you might have a new staff member, well, let's put it this way, new starters who are just out of school, they've never had a real job before, they need to go and face up to a particular business or a corporation to kick off their career. And if they haven't done anything like that before, that can be quite anxious. It can also be quite nerve-wracking. So what I've kind of come across a few times and I see being built quite often is like a virtual workplace tour to kind of give the individual familiarity about the actual workplace before they go there in person. Now, if you think about it, it kind of makes sense because they can actually explore their workplace without actually having to be there or being thrown on the spot and getting anxious about it. So important things like where's the lunchroom or where's the toilet? Even more important, where do I find that? Where is it located? And the other place where I've actually seen this used a fair bit is through NDIS people, for services where they want to train someone who might be coming through the NDIS system to get familiar with their new working environment before they actually turn up on day one. So it kind of allows them to get quite comfortable with that. So the good thing about that is you could use a tool like this to take a number of 360-degree images of the learner's workplace. Okay, so everything from the parking lot through to the the entrance lobby, right through to the offices, and yeah, even to where the toilet's located. Okay, so what I want to kind of share with you is an example of how we've done that. So I'm going to bring up let's go. So I'm just going to bring up my tool. Yeah, Christina, great question. When you drop a 360 image in and it's set to the image, can you decide that starting point? Yes, you can. And that's one of the things I'll show you with this particular demonstration here. So I'm just going to preview this to give you a bit of a feel for it. Storyline's deciding it's having a hard day now. Here we go. So I can drop in those 7 360-degree images of my office space. I can add some handy markers and maybe even a few layers with some information to help my learner, and then invite them to explore that workplace virtually and get a feel for where everything is, who they even need to talk to, where the offices are for the various departments or whatever the case may be. So let's say this is our design office. This is a made up business place. So they get this 360 image and it's like, all right, so please, you're joining the team. Let's take you through the office, give you a tour so you feel at home and you know where everything is the minute you turn up on day one. All right, so we pop into the car park to start with. And here we go. So we've got our first image, which is based in the car park, and it's got some information about the car park. So, if you prefer to ride to work, there's bicycle storage available. All right. This here, that's the door that goes back out to the street. Here's their designated parking spot. So it shows them where to go to. And then, some handy stuff like this is the CEO's car, so please don't hit it. Could be hazardous to your health. And then it's also kind of gives them a feel of what that space looks like. And then right up the end, you can see there's a hovering area. This is the lobby. This is the lift that takes them through to the lobby. So when they click on that, it says, okay, here's the lift to the foyer. Don't spend all day standing around the garage. There's work to do. Let's go to the foyer. And so this is just a jump to slide trigger. So when I hit that button, that takes me up to the foyer. And so if I have a bit of a look around, I can see there's a number of things that are being highlighted. So I can see, all right, so what's this? This is an office space. Okay, so there's a meeting room available here. There's a video which might have some extra information about the meeting rooms, what they're used for. And then I've also got a little bit of a layer that's jumped in that said, hey, if you want to book a meeting room for your new job, then make sure you give Jenny a call on extension 453. All right, so just kind of pops that in so the learner goes, oh, okay, well, meeting rooms, great. This one's used for external clients. Who do I need to talk to about that? Jenny, fantastic. So they're kind of getting a lot of information about their workplace before they even get to the workplace. All right, what's over here? Okay, so here's to get back to the underground parking. So once they get to the lobby, this shows them, all right, down and around this corner is where the lifts are to take you back down to the car park. And if I want to go back down the car park now, I can click the button to do so. Well, I just got here, so I'm going to move and keep looking around. All right, so what's this? This is a large kind of meeting space. What does this do? Okay, so some meeting tables that are available for both customer and team member use. All right, so that's good. If I need some extra space or to get away from the office, what else have I got around here? All right, what's this? It's the waiting area, which means that this is probably, okay, so that's the door to the street. So that's our actual street level entry, not the basement entry. All right, good to know. So that's how I can get out to the street to get lunch, or whatever the case may be. There is a dog sitting here. What's the dog all about? Right, company mascot and head of security's top guard dog. And apparently she doesn't fetch. Good to know. Good to know. Okay. And then I've got a few more places that as I hover over them, it gives me a bit more information. Let's have a look at what's down this corridor. Okay, this is where the bathroom is. As I said, very important. All right, let's go have a quick look down the bathroom, see what's down there. Okay, that's the bathroom. That makes sense. Okay, so I can see the bathroom. All right, I don't think I need to have that close of a look at it. I just need to know where it is. All right, back out to the foyer. All right, what's on the other side? All right, display room. So this passageway leads to our display room. We use it for conferences and demos. Great place to go for some peace and quiet. All right, let's go and have a look at the display room. Wow, nice. Big screen, open area, good lighting, good view of the city. I've got a marker here. What's this say? All right, so tell us a bit more about the display room. We hold our demos and events for clients and team members. Great views through to the windows to the harbour and city park, and just kind of shows an image of what it looks like when it's decked out a bit, which is actually a completely different image, but just pretend it's the same place. Okay. All right. I'm guessing this goes back to the foyer. Yeah, it does. All right, back out the door to the foyer. And then last but not least, what have I got here? This is the Western offices. So I can pop and have a look down the Western offices. All right, so again, it's just giving me a feel for what everything is, what everything looks like. All right, so what's this? All right, so this is the meeting room, the Western meeting room. So used for team members only. Again, it makes a note, go and see Jenny if you want to book it. All right, what's this one? Okay, so there's a hot desk set up. All right, so basically you've got the option to work remotely, but when you're in the office, just pick a desk. Pretty cool. Okay. Reverse cycle air conditioning, always be comfortable, efficient. Probably something we need at this time with this lovely Arctic snap we're currently experiencing. And what's down here? Breakout table. All right, so an option to get away from your desk, have meetings with either team members, get some in a different environment. Again, there's a video here that kind of gives some more examples or information about that particular venue as well. What do we got up top here? Keep on vibing. You've got background music in all our rooms. You can even choose the next tune from your company smartphone. All right, cool. And then once we're done kind of exploring this workspace, we can see there's a couple of doors here. So this door here, if we click on it, takes us back to the foyer. This door here will take us over to the Eastern office. So let's pop over to the Eastern office. Let's have a look at that setup. All right, so very similar to where we just were. But again, we've got a couple of icons. So this is the Eastern meeting room again. All right, cool. What are these areas? So that's the operations team. All right, that's where marketing's located. Who's this? Okay, this is the project team. Cool. All right, what's this one? Oh, CEO's office. All right, so that's where I can find Angela. Make sure to call by and say hi. Okay. What else have we got? Oh, John. Okay, so he's the office manager, can assist me with supplies, meetings, and appointments. Anything I need, he's the team member, can help me out. So great. So again, it's kind of setting some faces to names and knowing where to go to get any assistance we might possibly need. All right, what's up here? This is security. All right. And then we've got the door back out to, I guess, the foyer. All right. Or I could go over to the Western office again, but I'm happy to pop back out to the foyer. And I've got one more space here. What's this? Stairs leading down. So these stairs lead down to the boiler room where the lighting, gas, and everything else are managed for the business. It looks a bit foreboding. All right, let's pop downstairs and have a look down there. All right, so here's the boiling room. It's where all the heat and power is managed for the building. I don't know why I'd need to go down here, but just in case, I know what it is and where it takes me to. Looks like the world's smallest training room here, doesn't it? All right, pop back up to the foyer. And then once I'm in the foyer, I can choose to go back to another venue, or for our purposes, I can also exit back out to the street. So when you finish the tour, you can click the exit tab in the top right corner of the window to close the module. There we go. So as I said, that's one of those very, very common ways that this tool can be used to assist you in getting someone used to their workspace and feeling comfortable on who they need to talk to and where they need to go to. Okay. Now, if I come back to Christina's question, a couple of questions have popped in the chat, so I'll hit those now. When I drop the image in, can I decide where it starts at? And the answer to that is yes, you can. So if I pop down to my foyer, when I drop that image in play, what I can do is I've actually got the option to edit the initial view. So it's located on the interaction tab. It looks like a little camera with little arrows pointing to, you know, north, southeast, southwest, northeast, and northwest. And if I click on that, it kind of turns into this camera mode, and that allows me to change the initial view. So it's always a good idea to kind of set the view up so it makes sense. So if I'm coming from over here, which is the basement, maybe it might have made a bit more sense to have me facing this direction. So I've just come up around the corner and here I am. All right. Although I kind of figured having the dog be the first thing I saw would be a little bit crazy, but that's no problems. If I decide the dog's the first thing I want to see, once I've set my initial view, I can hit the set button and there we go. So next time when I come to this particular slide, so let me save and close. It's updated the starting position. And we'll preview it. There we go. So you can adjust that starting position based on what you need. Sam's got a great question. Can people search to find somewhere? Okay, so What I would do in that particular regards is I'd actually just set up something like an interaction where I'd ask the learner, are you looking for a particular area? And maybe by using, maybe I've used some buttons at the actual in the basement, or use some buttons in the actual lobby. And then if they're looking for somewhere in particular, they can click on one of those buttons to go to. Or you could set up a variable where they could actually input a word, and then based on the word they input, you could have a layer open to say, hey, I see you've entered the toilet. Do you want to see where the toilet's located? And then take them through that process as well. So yeah, you can definitely still use all your normal building blocks, Sam, to create whatever type of interaction you want, and they can still interact via that 360 image. There's my meeting room layer that I was talking about. So I obviously set that up beforehand. And then I've just got triggers that when someone clicks on a hotspot or a marker for a meeting room, that layer pops out so they know who to talk to. All right. So there you go, ladies and gents. That is 360 images. So we've just hit the 45-minute mark. I'm happy to hang around and answer any questions if you've got any. If not, that's the official part of our session done. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for hanging out while we do a bit of a speed run through the options that you've got available to you with your Storyline 360 images. I would encourage you, have a play with it, get in and kind of get a feel for it. Like anything in Storyline, the more you use it, the more comfortable you get with using it, and also the more opportunities you can see where you could use something like this. Again, keep in mind that if you do want to take your own 360 images, your starting point's around about the $400, $500, $600 mark, but I'm sure you could probably find some better bargains around the place as well. But all the best with your 360 images, and if we can help you out with anything else, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're more than happy to help you as well. So guys, that finishes the official part. This has been recorded, so the recording will be sent out to you if you want to refer back to it at a later date. And again, as I said, if there's any questions, I'm happy to take them now. So if you want to throw them in the chat, I can answer them. If not, you are free to go. Have a wonderful Friday. Have a great weekend. Hopefully it gets a bit warmer, and we'll catch up with you next time. Cheers.